Recently over on the New Tech forums, user Keith23 asked how to simulate a roll of carpet as it's unrolled. And of course, as usual, there was a lot of discussion, and we came up with several different techniques that he could use to apply. But Stream came up with one that came kind of out of the blue, using the old deformer tools. And though I say the older deformer tools, they're still very valid and very useful. And actually, the concept that he came up with works really fast and pretty easy. Instead of using bones or lots of morphs or different things like that, using the deform tools, the bin tool in particular works out great. Let's take a look at setting this up, but also in the process I'd like to show you just kind of a taste of the deform tools and how they work in layout. So let's go ahead and close this. Let's create a couple objects to work with. We'll start with the carpet. I'm going to grab the box tool and we'll just give it, we won't make the carpet this thick. We'll bring it down some, and I'm going to give it some segments because we are going to deform this. So I'm using the up arrow key and the right arrow key to give it some segments, and that should work for this. And I'm going to go ahead and hit tab so we can work with subdivisional surfaces. And knowing that my pivot point is at the origin per layer, I'm going to go ahead and slide this over, and we'll have our pivot point here at the base of our carpet. And I'm going to go ahead and save this out. So File, Save Object As, and we'll call this carpet. Always good to have a version number, so 001. Save. And then let's create one more object just so that we have another object to work with to show off some of the other tools. So I'm going to just go File, New, and we'll create, we don't need as many segments as before. So I'm just going to go back to no segments and then just add a few. Okay, that should do. Just actually I'm going to add a couple more this way and a couple more this way. And let's go ahead and center that. I'm going to move it up to the base and hit tab. So really we've just got a subdivisional surface, a subpatch box, just so that we can deform it and not worry about it breaking, being too low poly for that. And let's go ahead and save that. So File, Save Object As, and we'll just call this Tower for lack of a better name. Okay, and let's start by sending this object, the tower, over to layout, and we'll work with this and then we'll get to the carpet. This will allow us to explore some of the tools and have a better understanding of what the tools are doing before we try and do the rolling carpet. So we'll come over here and send object to layout. Okay, so here we are. Let's go ahead and start taking a look at some of the deform tools. So I have my object. I'm going to come over to Properties. Under the Deform tab, I'm going to go to Add Displacement, and we've got different deform tools. We've got Deform Bend, Pole, Shear, Taper, Twist, and Vortex. Now these work very similar to the way they work in Modeler, so let's take a look. We'll start with Bend. We're going to be using that for the carpet. Now it went ahead and jumped and did something that I had no control over because it hasn't been applied yet. We need to create an effect base and effect handle, and usually those are other objects, but I can use null objects for this. I don't really need to go and build new objects. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to turn that off for right now because that might kind of get annoying if we have that circle going on. Let's go ahead and close this for now, and I'm going to go ahead and create two nulls. The first null, I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. I like to name the nulls, otherwise you might end up with 20 nulls in the scene and you're trying to figure out what's what. And for that we'll use base, and I'm going to make another null and I'm going to call this handle. I'm not being very creative with the names. I'm basing it off of what the deform tools are looking for. It's looking for a base and it's looking for a handle. And I'm going to move the handle up to here. So I've got my base and I've got my handle and I've got my object. So with my object selected, I'm going to go P for Properties. I'm going to go ahead and activate the bin tool, and for the base I'm going to choose base and for the effect handle, I'm going to choose handle, and for the axis, I'm going to go ahead and choose Y, because I'm going to bend down the Y. Hit OK. And I'm going to move over the frame slider here just so that we can refresh the screen. So what we have is our rig using the Deform tool. If I move the handle, it's going to bend, but the base isn't. So I can move this around. And so without bones or dynamics or any kind of deformation tool other than the Deform bend tool, I've got this guy kind of going to town. Now, I can use more than one deformer at a time if I want, but for right now, let's just use one at a time. So I'm going to go select this object again, P for properties. I'm going to turn off the bend, and let's go over to, let's say, twist. Okay, double click, and I'm going to choose for the effect base. I'm going to choose base, and for the handle, I'm going to choose handle, and I could change the axis, but I'm going to have it running down the Y as well, and I could change the shape of my twist here, but let's go ahead and just throw that back there, hit OK, scrub the timeline just to change it up, and I'm going to Y for rotate, and I'm going to twist it. Again, no bones, just using this Deform tool. It's the twist Deform tool. Okay, so I'm going to undo and select this object again, turn off twist, and let's add taper. Okay, now again, it'll automatically do something, but we're not in control of that until we activate by selecting a base, so base, and a handle, and we'll go down the Y, and again we have some options here, but let's go ahead and use the default. Okay, and now when I refresh and select the top here, I can Shift H or modify size. It's the same shortcuts that we use over in Modeler, and then I can size this up, and I'm tapering it based on the scale of my handle, which is this null right here. Okay, so what we can also do is turn them all on. Okay, so I'm using the same base and the same handle for all three. Let's go ahead and close this down, and I'm going to size it up a little bit, Y for rotate, and I'm going to twist it, okay, and then T for move, and I'm going to bend it, okay, so I can bend it around. So I have full control. You can kind of have this swaying underwater or something like that. I have full control over my mesh based on these two nulls wherever I place the base. If I were to, just to give you an idea, let's go back to P for properties, and I'm going to turn everything off except for twist. So I only have twist here, and I'm going to grab the base null just so you understand what the base null is doing. As I move it up, actually I'm not moving it up in that case, I was moving it in the Z. I'm going to move it up in the Y, and so it's only twisting from the base up towards the handle. It's not twisting down here, and the same thing would happen for bend and for vortex. And let's take a look at what else is there. We've got, let's move over to the tower object. So we have bend, pull, shear, taper, twist, and vortex. And again, they work just like they do in Modeler, except we're over here in layout using them to animate with. So of course, if I wanted to animate this twist, let's select this handle, and I'm going to come over to heading and turn that to 0, and then come over to frame 20, and I'm going to twist this around. And then as I scrub my timeline, you can see I can animate this. So it's a way of animating some of the modify tools that we find in Modeler, but we'll do it here in layout. So let's use what we've learned here to apply it to rolling up a carpet. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this scene, and let's hop over to Modeler, and we already have the carpet object built. Let's just send it over to layout. Here we go. Now, just so that they don't get in the way, I'm going to go ahead and hide and lock my camera and light, and to do that I'm going to head over to the scene editor, and we've got this little eye icon here, and I'm just going to click on the little dots, which will no longer be visible. And just so that I don't accidentally select them anyway, I'm going to lock them. So we'll just be dealing with our carpet here. Okay. And so knowing that we're going to use the bend function, we don't have to apply it first. We can go ahead and set up our nulls. So I'm going to go over to Items, Add Null, and this one I'm going to call Base. And this time I'm going to go ahead and dress up my null a little bit just so that it's easier to see what's what. Let's make this one a box, and I'm going to move it over here. And then let's make our handle. So null, handle, and we'll make this one a ball, just so it's something different. And I'm going to go ahead and move my handle up here, just as kind of a starting place of where I'm going to do my bend. So now that I've got these two objects, my base and my handle, I'm going to select this object, P for Properties. Under the Deform tab, Add Displacement, let's choose Bend, double click on it, and for Effect Base, let's choose Base. For Handle, choose Handle. See how by naming it base and handle, we're not trying to remember, okay, was null 1 the base, was null 2 the base, and null 1 the handle. So again, naming conventions are key, I think, in any production environment. And as you can see here, it's just easy to match up base and handle. Let's go ahead and we're not going to bend down the Y in this case, because we want to bend, we want to roll this across the X. So I'm going to choose the X axis and click OK. And let's close this for now. So I'm going to grab my base handle, and as I move it away from my handle, my carpet rolls up. Now, we're close to what we need, but if let's zoom in. Okay, and what happens is as it rolls onto itself, which doesn't look right. I mean, that's not what would happen. It needs to kind of coil in. So there's a trick for this, and let's try it out. So we need to offset it so that this end doesn't match up with this end. So one thing that we could do is we could build a morph for that. So I'm going to select this object, and actually we have it loaded up in Modeler. So let's go over to Modeler, and let's build a really basic morph. I'm going to come over here to M and New, and we'll call this rotate for lack of a creative name. Rotate will work. Create. And then Y for rotate. And then I'm just going to rotate it up some. It doesn't really matter how much. It's better to overshoot than anything. This is way more distance than we're going to need, but we don't have to use our morph 100%, which is something that a lot of people forget when they're building morphs and using morphs. Just because the morph can go to 100% and beyond doesn't mean you have to use all of it. So now that we have this, I'm going to hit S for save, synchronize layout, pop over to layout, and what I'm going to do is, because we can always keyframe this back, I'm going to roll this up, and we'll zoom into it. And basically, I want to offset it until I can see that it's coiled the way I want it to, because I have control over that. I'm going to select this object, P for Properties, under Deform, Add Displacement. Let's go ahead and under Add Displacement, let's choose Morph Mixer. We're going to gain access to the morph we just created. Double click. I'm going to close the object properties, and I'm going to close this up a little smaller just so that we can see what's going on. And I'm just going to use some of the morph. As you can see, now it's starting to coil in. I can have it coil in a lot or a little. I'm just going to have it coil in enough to where it's kind of touching, and that works for me. Okay, so once we have that, we can zoom out, and I'm going to pull this back. Now by doing that, I've lifted my carpet up off the ground. I'm going to switch over to the back view so we can really see. Okay, so it's touching the ground over here if we want to call this line our ground, but it's not over here. Well, that's kind of cheating. We know that something's not right. Nothing would hold this up like this, so we need to fix that. So to do that, we're just going to rotate this down so that it looks like it's touching the ground. Okay. If you notice the bounding box here, this dotted line, you can see that that's what our object actually looks like, and the morph is what's lifting it up. So with that done, I can go T for move, select my base handle, and as it rolls up, it coils up. Okay. So we're using a morph to help offset the start here to the end here, so that it's not right on top of it. It looks like it's being rolled up. Okay. Now I can always go and adjust my handles. So if I want to change this, I can adjust my handle here, and I can make that coil tighter. Okay. We're kind of zoomed far away, but I'll zoom in so that we can see what's going on. See, by moving that handle farther away, it made the coils tighter. And so now I can roll. If I want it to roll bigger, I'd move the handle closer. Let's go into perspective mode just so we can take another look at this. Okay, so just by animating one null object, this handle, I can roll the entire carpet up with one move. So to actually animate that, because right now I've just been doing a real-time preview just by moving it around, I can come down here to my timeline, and let's just say on frame 30, it's going to, in a 30 frames per second animation, it's going to take a second to roll up, and I'll just roll it up. And now as I scrub through, you can see that the carpet is rolling using the bin deformer in layout. So again, I'd like to thank Stream for the idea of doing this. It's a great idea. It's much quicker, I believe, than setting up a bunch of bones. If all you want it to do is roll up, why not take advantage of the deform tools in layout?